why is it that in the Arab and Muslim world we are hesitating? And bring me to the point of what happened in Iran. When finally, after decades, the Iranian civil society decided to rise against the most dangerous regime on the face of earth, which is the Khomeini's regime, what did we do in Washington? We said, we do not meddle. We've been meddling in Yugoslavia, we've been meddling in Eastern Europe, I'm using the term meddle, you understand?
Absolutely.
We've been standing by these civil societies to be with them in terms of democracy. And when it came to the first possible democratic revolution that could end half of the war on terror, that would be a change in Iran, we hesitated. And I think behind that there is, of course, the power of oil, of the oil lobbies that are pressing our administration and pressing our Congress and the Europeans not to intervene on behalf of democracy.
A number of things you touched on. I want to continue with the strategy, though. When we are evaluating the Muslim world and speaking to the, quote, Muslim world, we must keep in mind that if we elevate things that are going to create fissures and get away from the basic argument of human rights, and I'm speaking to the Israeli Palestinian issue, I'm speaking to the demonization of America, and it's the Taliban or Al-Qaeda against America.
Exactly.
We need clarification. We need to make it about human rights?
Absolutely.
Okay, and fundamentally, when we elevate those issues, though, of a two-state solution, we are actually doing ourselves a tremendous disservice because strategically we're playing in to our enemy's hands.
What the jihadist strategy is to isolate the United States and isolate also the allies of the United States, one from the other, and to tell us that what's happening around the world. And that was, by the way, the speech of bin Laden a few days ago when he said, all you have to do is just cease your support to Israel and everything would be wonderful. No, that is not true. The Arab-Israeli conflict is not the only conflict in the Middle East. The jihadists rose against their own societies and against freedom and democracy way before there was in Israel. I just mentioned, they began in the 1920s. And actually they claim that they have been struggling for many centuries. The Arab-Israeli conflict is only one, and we have to treat it as one out of many. We have to address the issue from the term of human rights. You have the genocide in Sudan, in Darfur. You have the Cedars Revolution in Lebanon, which taught us.
What is the status right there? Pardon me for interrupting, but I want a status on Lebanon because it's out of the news.
It is out of the news.
It's tremendous, but it deserves, it's making news. And
it deserves attention. Let's keep in mind that as for Iran, Lebanon was the first post 9/11 democratic revolution without boots on the ground on behalf of the West or the United States, without dollars, without no-fly zones. These were courageous people, the Lebanese people, who took the streets in February and March of 2005. 1.5 million people took the streets against the Iranian regime's Hezbollah-backed organization, the Syrian army, the Palestinian jihadists who are in Lebanon, and other organizations, and told the world, look, we are fighting for our freedom. We stood by them at that moment without even saying anything except words, and they won. We got the Syrian army out of Lebanon. The problem is that we did not continue in helping them disarm Hezbollah, a population which is unarmed, that is under the control of an organization, Hezbollah, which receives $1 billion a year from Iran. You know what you can do with $1 billion? Receives up to 60,000 rockets now, and of course has been involved in violence against the Lebanese society. In 2008, for example, there have been assassinations of members of parliament. So the United States should have been standing by the Lebanese people. Unfortunately, we didn't, and unfortunately, Hezbollah counterattacked, and now they are almost in control of Lebanon.
And you were at the forefront of this with Resolution 1559 and the world community. And the reason I bring that up is because when the world community steps up, it's not only stepping up at that time, that's good, but they need to have some follow through. And I also want to reference there is something happening this Tuesday that is historic and a lot of good things, but I want to reference that because it's just not about producing a resolution, it's about following through. Go ahead.
It is really, as you said, Crane, about having a systematic political strategy. It's not just by spasms that we operate. We need to have a vision. what lacks in Washington under the last 2 years of the previous administration and under this year of the current administration is the non-existence of a strategy of human rights and democracy. That should be the priority, because that is the game changer in the Middle East and the Arab and Muslim world. We could be pushing brigades as much as we can, which is good for the fight against the terrorists, or we could be delivering speeches as much as the president did in Istanbul and Cairo and other spots and here in the United States, and that is not going to do it. What we need to do is stand by the democracy forces in the region. And since you mentioned, yes, this week, next week in Washington, D.C., a historic event, we are going to be having members of the U.S. Congress coming together with members from the European Parliament, 7 nations, and a representative of the Canadian Parliament, for the first time coming together in Washington, D.C. under the name of Transatlantic Legislative Group on Counterterrorism. And they are going to be working together to put a long-term vision on countering the jihadist regimes and organizations and ideology, and submitting those projects to the US government, to the European Parliament, to NATO, and having a stronger narrative in international relations.
This is something you've worked for 30 years.
I have been working for that since 1979, and yes, today, the 30th year, finally, things are moving forward.
The book is Future Jihad, Confrontation, How to Win the War Against Future Jihad. The author, Dr. Walid Phares, Professor Phares, and he has certainly been a leader as well in the human rights movement. Pleasure and privilege, Dr. Phares. Thanks so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Definitely. Nothing But Truth will continue on the flip side.